So on one of the slides in your presentation, you had kind of all this key skills that product management really needs to have. The marketing side, the business side, the technical side. And I think that's the slide you often see people building when they talk about rock stars, because that is a lot of ground to cover. And so I'm wondering, you had another slide where you're showing the matrix of the different type of product managers. At some point, do you need a sliding scale, depending on the size of your organization, to really cover all of those versus asking one person to do it all?
Sure. So I think the reality is this, right? And this is, again, part of the problem, which is how product management typically gets introduced into a company. So very, very few companies, except those started by people who maybe come from product management or understand product management, realize that the act of product management starts before you start the company, right? Because you have to think, what are we trying to do? What are our goals? Who are we building products for? All those kinds of general market sort of understanding issues that come out. And Scott Selhorst actually had a really great blog post on this a little while back. It was in response to Jason Calacanis's blog post. Basically getting rid of product managers at Mahalo and then letting engineers.
Right, because you should just code and throw it out there, right? Just see what
something like that. I mean, it was like, well, Facebook kind of just ships stuff. Why can't we? So I won't criticize the strategy of Mahalo, but Scott had a really great point. He said, just because you get rid of product managers doesn't mean you get rid of product management. And I may be paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but the gist of it was that, and I thought that was actually a really great line because it's absolutely true, right? I mean, just because you don't have salespeople in your company, for example, doesn't mean you don't need to sell, right? So the point being that product management starts early on. There's a bunch of key decisions that need to be made. And, a lot of times it's not done by, excuse me, it's not done by someone whose title has the word product manager in it, but it's being done. And then at some point, yes, a formal hire of, a product manager happens. Mm-hmm. But usually happens in reaction to some problem. And the problem is usually not, we need a strategic thinker who can help drive product direction. It's usually something like, wow, we're getting all these requirements and things aren't really working, so let's find someone who can sort this mess out. And as soon as they do that, all of a sudden they're pigeonholing product management. And they're saying, it's this thing that works over in engineering and manages requirements. And if you do that without understanding why you're doing that, then you're setting yourself up for problems, because from that point on, that's how you're going to look at product management. And you don't realize that there's this whole other aspect to it that is being done by people, but really should be done by, this team, and you should have an experienced executive at the helm.
Right.
And so that's, I think, really where the issue arises. And then once you get that, you're in trouble, because you may say, we need this person also to do some marketing stuff, and we need this person to work with sales and enable sales. We need this person to do demos or POCs or whatever. I mean, it becomes this kind of amalgam of all these different activities. And the reality is that if you step back and think about it, you hire a product manager, they have a goal, but their goal should be the success of the product from a business perspective, where building the right product is one aspect of that. But it's not the whole thing. And so then as you grow, you say, okay, we understand that there's this broad set of responsibilities, broad set of skills. One person can never do it all, regardless of how good they are, because there aren't that many hours in a day. And so then when they hire, they should understand, okay, here's how we're going to split up the role, but understand that it's part of a whole. So a lot of times you'll see, okay, we have a product manager and they're over in engineering, we need a product marketer.
Yep.
And then they work with marketing. So who's minding the business, right? No one. And that's a problem. So I actually say that the thing you should do is, the product manager or the people who you start off with product manager, it should be business focused. And then you do need to give attention to the engineering. And that's where you define a technical product manager who works closely with engineering, but as part of a team.
Yeah.
They could be, an agile product owner, if that's the way you want to do it, or it could be some other role. But that's how you split up into a business and technical role. And then you can spread out from there, more depending on what your needs are. Some you hire people who are more aligned with marketing or more aligned with sales, etc. And you structure so that you cover the cross-functional responsibilities, but as a group, not by a single individual stretched, thin.
Yep. And I I will. I guess my one comment to add to that is, in my background, the strongest product management organization I've ever been in was defined just as you described it, where I essentially was the business product management lead. We had a technical product management lead. We had marketing managers. I mean, it really was how you're somewhat outlining your team here, and it was scalable. I mean, it's a global organization, and it had to do these things to deliver on time, and and just it's hard when you've seen that. It's hard to imagine it done another way because it works, right? Once you align the responsibilities, get the right parties in the right places, it does click, and you get away from some of these. I don't want to say inconsequential, but some of these just the things you shouldn't be debating, shouldn't be worrying about once you start just delivering and meeting kind of the goals of the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you kind of you think about it from every other angle. Like, would you hire just a bunch of engineers who do QA and documentation and, no, you structure it it just kind of baffles me why there's such a disconnect when it comes to product management. And I see it all the time. And it's really, I talked to a number of people at the product camp, and they were clearly frustrated because they were being pigeonholed in very narrow roles. Some people whose title is product manager are actually project managers, which is even worse, I think.
That is even worse.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we all have to speak out. We all have to do some education. I worked in a company where it was that kind of we have a product manager, and the product manager does everything. We had product marketing as well. That was a smaller group, and I advocated for technical product management to be introduced because the company was going agile. And, the agile Kool-Aid was kind of sinking in with the engineering team, and they wanted product management to be co-located and attend all the daily scrum meetings, etc. And I was like, that's not product management. You want a product owner? Great. Let's define the role. If the product owner needs to be part of product management, then let's get a technical product manager, and that's a big part of their job. But they are a product manager first and foremost. So they still have to get out. They still have to talk to customers. They have to still do the kinds of things that you expect of a product manager. They're not just an adjunct to engineering, but they spend, a majority of their time working with engineers to ensure that the communication happens, problems are addressed, and they can escalate things out, up into either the product management organization or into other groups so that there's a clean flow of information. So it took a while, but it did happen, and product management did not sit with engineering, which was another, small victory, I think. And, it worked really, really well. And I was very happy that, that was one small victory, but people kind of understood. Because the agile guys have a very, I think, distorted view of product management, unfortunately. And they have a loud voice.
Yep. I can see that, but as you mentioned, sometimes it is the small victories, it's the small change to kind of get your organization aligned to where you need to be. So, hey, Saeed, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me late this evening, and also just taking the time to help educate. I mean, this is a big deal, like you said. It's not something that occurs occasionally. It is a problem that we need to help educate, and I really appreciate you just sharing your product management knowledge with us.
Well, thanks, Josh. I really appreciate your time as well.
All right, great. Thanks again.
Thanks.